wanted to put together this brief video to review the find that I made on Hitler's house and Walt Disney's house. Now, this video is not going to go into the depth of the fact that Walt Disney was actually Adolf Hitler and ultimately was Kermit Roosevelt. You can find those facts in my other video. This video will cover just the home and a few small points about the surrounding evidence that supports it. So again, if you are unfamiliar with what we're speaking about, please watch my other videos where I go into the depth about the ear, biometrics, facial landmarks, handwriting analysis, and of course all the other supporting roles that individuals in Hollywood at that time played. Just a little bit of history on this find. When I was working on this for my other documentary, the original images that you see from the archives that claim to be, of course, Hitler's home, Disney played a little bit of an optical trick on you, and they do this a lot where they put the evidence right in front of you, but they change it enough where they can sit back and laugh at you as you don't realize what it is, but it's right in your face. There was always something about the image that gave me a gut feeling that there was just something wrong with it, and I couldn't figure it out until I was working on something else and realized that they had flipped the image, but not just flipped it vertically, they flipped it horizontally as well. So once you correct the image, you can overlay the homes on top of each other and find that they are a match. This is Hitler's home. Underneath it we have Walt Disney's home. We'll change the opacity on the top layer, and you will see the house matches even the driveway. They just modified the driveway at the end when they built his brother's house at the bottom here so they could share the end of the driveway. The street wasn't here at the time when it was the Hitler house. There was no neighbors, of course, either. There was just a few back here. Those houses have been modified, they've been updated, and they're larger now. But we can see, as we scroll to Disney's home, same driveway, and we go back to Hitler's. We can see the slight changes to the house that they made. They've extended and made this larger here, and they shifted the pool as well as changed the shape of it from a rectangle to a nice curved edge. A little bit of a remodel. Give them some more room out here. Now right here is where the large stairs were that you see in the Hitler videos. They removed that and they changed the driveway so you could actually exit the house here, and this was the front of the house instead of over in here. This is the grand hall that you see, and these are some of the windows that are in it. As we see, the same windows are in Disney's home. This is a photograph from his recent sale of the home. It sold for $3.2 million. Same windows are still there. Now there's a rather interesting window that looks out towards the pool that they just released, and I didn't see this photograph before when I looked at the sale of the home. We can see that there is clearly a German crest on the window. Now remember that, because in my upcoming video you're going to see why that's so important and the ties that Hitler has, or Walt Disney, to royalty. We can see the curved shape of the pool. They've changed that. but we can still see the edge, this wall that is still here. And of course they've made the house much bigger now. So you can see clearly there's a row of trees. There's the indentation where they are. You can clearly see that the houses are the same. Now, that means that every official that you saw on those homemade videos by Hitler or Ava, whatever, every one of those officials that supposedly visited Hitler's home are fake. They are actors. We've identified several of them from the golden era of Hollywood. So keep this in mind when you look at the rest of the information and know for a fact that Walt Disney played the role of Adolf Hitler. Now, like I said about Kermit Roosevelt, he joined the British military during World War II. Now, why would the son of a president, American president, join the British military? Well, there you go. The mountains that you see in the background, we're talking about Disney now, remember. It's not difficult for them to mask those in. That is a very simple procedure. Especially when you have a straight line edge like a wall, that makes it much easier to do.
There is written in the Constitution of the United States that Congress has the right to coin, issue, and regulate the value of money. That's good Americanism, and it's good enough for me. Every politician today, in the Democratic or Republican ranks, who sits upon one of the thrones of the mighty, doesn't believe in that part of the Constitution. They don't want to believe in that part of the Constitution. They believe that the Federal Reserve Bank has the right to coin and regulate the value of money. They're not even Americans, these so-called Democrats and Republicans. And so, Mr. Roosevelt, who was very loquacious in 1933 about driving the money changers out of the temple, is now bent upon another policy. I think driving the workmen out of decent annual wages. As I come before you today, I wish to leave this thought with you, that in each congressional district here in Illinois, we will endorse a candidate who can rise above his party and puts patriotism first.
My dear friends, that among other things in the National Union for Social Justice, we are Christian insofar as we believe in Christ's principle of love your neighbor as yourself, and with that principle I challenge every Jew in this nation to tell me that he does not believe in it.
Den alten, stolzen Waffenträger unseres Volkes, die nicht minder traditionsgefestigte politische Führung der Partei treten, und dann werden diese beiden Einrichtungen gemeinsam den deutschen Menschen erziehen und festigen und auf ihren Schultern tragen, den deutschen Staat, das Deutsche Reich.
There is no need of communizing all the factories and the fields and the forests and the mines under a new kind of God made of flesh and blood and clay and hatred. when men become so prideful that they believe their destiny is to rewrite the eternal law of God, it's time for their fellow citizens to rise up in their wrath and through the agency of ballots and not bullets to relegate them to the pages of the past.
Therefore, under your congressional district presidents, form your battalions, take up the shield of your defense, unsheathe the sword of your truth, and carry on in Illinois so that the communists on the one hand cannot scourge us, and that the modern capitalists on the other cannot plague us.
That was Father Coughlin. He was a radio announcer back in the 1930s, probably the most popular radio broadcaster in history. At any particular time, he could be speaking to at least 1/3 of the entire population of the country. So his voice was heard by many. Now remember him, because we'll come back to him in a moment after we begin with this first ear analysis. For those of you that are unfamiliar with my work, I've been a medical illustrator for 2 best-selling books on the Kennedy assassination, high treason, and the killing of a president. I've had training in the University Arts, and I've been an illustrator for many years. One of the things that I have been looking into in the past 10 years has been ear biometrics, and that by meaning a way of identifying individuals by using their ears as like a fingerprint. The research has shown that the shape and appearance of a human ear is unique to each individual and relatively unchanging during the entire lifetime of the adult. Therefore, the ear has been proposed for use in biometrics. In fact, the United States Immigration and Naturalization Service, the INS, has a form giving specifications for the photograph that indicates that the right ear should be visible. Now, the ears on your head are not the same as each other. They are unique to themselves, as you can see in this photograph. The use of computers to identify individuals is not a very good method when it comes to facial recognition or any other biometrics, because of the fact that people can mask the face, or there's different perspectives, views, camera angles, different obstructions, different things that throw off those type of computer automations. So the best way to do an evaluation is still the old-fashioned way, by human eye. There are many different methods to do this, but depending upon the material that you have to work with will dictate sometimes which method you can use and which you can't. Fortunately for us, we have many photographs to pick from, since these people are involved in the entertainment business. So I feel the best way to demonstrate that they match is by taking the image and applying a grid to the photograph, and then where the intersecting parts meet the grid, we put a mark. Now, if you have 2 images, 2 photographs that are the same perspective, same camera angle, this works really well. If you don't, then you do have to adjust the perspective, but fortunately for us, we have very good photographs. So let's begin with this first analysis. First thing we've done is we've drawn a marker over the ear. Now, we've also marked off the areas on the ear where that ear intersects with that marker. Now remember, we're working with old black and white photography, so we're going to have a more of a dulled edge, so you won't be that exact. Plus the non-studio settings of the other one that we're going to show in a minute, you'll see there's a slight difference, but nevertheless you can still see that the structure and everything will match the markers. Let's change the opacity. As you'll see the other ear underneath it. Become visible. You'll notice we're right on with the markings. This ear is a match. Now it's fortunate that we have good samples like this where there in pretty much the same position, and the camera point of view is pretty much the same. So who did these ears belong to? Well, we've discussed this person before in another video of mine, and people are having a hard time understanding how this could be. But in this video we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to find exactly who this person really is. You're going to be shocked, I guarantee it. So as you can see, they match. Not only do the ears match, but we have the teeth matching, and everything else matches. Now, you can argue if you want, but there is more evidence that has been kept from us that I'm about to show you that will make this absolutely 100% undeniable, as we're going to find out exactly who Hitler really is. All the images that you see in this video I will make available for download on Walloware 1, and you'll be able to do your own ear evaluations to verify my findings. So as I began researching for this video project, looking specifically at Hitler and the people around that era, I came across Father Coughlin that you saw in the beginning. Something about him struck me as familiar, and maybe this will clue you in to where I went to next.
The presidential election approaches. A Roman Catholic priest, for the first time in American history, is seriously involved in national politics.
That pose right there was the first one that caught my attention, with the wrist facing outward and the clenched fist. The next one that really caught my attention, you'll see in a moment.
God hates the hypocrite! And as long as you shall permit a little handful.
That one right there with the downward beating of the hands and the sharp motion, that caught my eye as well. Now, if you know anything about Hitler, you know the history about how he had his photographer, Hoffman, record him doing speeches beforehand so he could practice the hand moves and his gestures, so he had everything planned out when he did his speech. This hand gesture, both of those, reminded me completely of Hitler, and here's some comparisons to show you.
Father Charles Edward Coughlin today is far more than just a voluble voice over the radio.
Die Jugend ist uns verschrieben. Es lebe die nationalsozialistische Bewegung. Es lebe Deutschland zu tun. Die höchste Verkörperung.
So when I saw those, I decided to compare Coughlin's ears and Hitler's ears together to do a comparison to see if what I suspected was true, and I'll let you decide. As you can see here, we have 3 ears to evaluate. First thing that we do when we do the evaluation is we draw a grid over the ear. The second thing we'll do is we will draw intersecting points where the ear crosses the lines. Now, as you can see, there's a shadow inside the ear here. You have to be very careful depending upon the light source, what direction it's coming from. Also, depending upon what film they're using and what the technology was at the time this photograph was taken, you're going to have conditions that will change the look of the edge. A softer edge in the more older photographs, a sharper edge in the more modern digital photographs. Now the shadows, you can see this shadow here is being cast from this edge of the ear. So the light source we know is coming from behind the photographer on the right hand side in the direction downward and across the ear. It's casting the shadow. So don't get confused with this shadow being an edge of the ear, because it's not. You can see that the edge is right inside here. Now we'll take this grid and we're going to duplicate it. Now we have two of them now. Same grid, same. Bring it over to this ear. Position it. And you can see we match. The slight difference of the angle of the head throws this one off just slightly, but you can see everything else is a match, so we know that this is the same ear. Now we'll do it again for the third ear. Again, we have another match. We can see that the landmarks of the ear are consistent, so these ears are from the same person. Of these three ears, let's start with the middle one. That ear belongs to Father Coughlin. Now, the second ear belongs to Hitler. The third ear belongs to Kermit Roosevelt. Now, just wait. It gets a whole lot better than just that. Remember Kermit, because we're going to come back to him in a moment. But first I wanted to explain one of the photographs that I just used. The photograph of Father Coughlin. In the examination here, we flipped it. So the ear that you saw was not the right ear for the photograph, because you don't have the same ear on both sides. But what you do have are the landmarks of the ears stay the same, and the landmarks are the genetic markers that make up your ear. They will stay consistent throughout, so you can see the genetic traits passed down from individual to father, son, or mother, daughter, and you can follow that trait. They stay with the bloodline. They change slightly, but the markers will still be there. So this is why we can see that the soft tissue area of the lobe has a small crease in it in Kermit's ear, but not in Father Coughlin's, because it's on the other side of his head. We can also see the lack of crease in the Hitler photograph because of the fact that that type of film used does not show the type of detail that was used in the film on Kermit. As we can see here, further evidence that Kermit Roosevelt was Hitler and Walt Disney, along with Father Coughlin. We can see the glabella, the part between the eyebrows, is consistent. Of course, we have the eyebrows, they are consistent as well. We can see the shape of the ear is consistent. This one's being pushed out by the glasses, but we can still see it's very consistent. The philtrum underneath the nose, the evidence is quite clear. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail when it comes to the Roosevelts, although I will address a few key issues with that family and the individuals that pulled the same stunt as Kermit. I'll save the details for another video and also for download from World War I. But Kermit was the son of Theodore Roosevelt. Now, if you're wondering where possibly Kermit got the idea to pull off the stunt that he did, well, I would believe he got it from his father. See, his father had a brother that committed suicide named Elliot. Now, Elliot looks an awful lot like Teddy's Vice President Taft, who then Teddy handpicked and put into the position of president when he left office. Taft also looks like an individual that is a key player at that time, and that is J.P. Morgan. By using, of course, theatrical makeup, the nose putty that was common for stage performers, we can definitely see the transformation is possible. Now, J.P. Morgan also had a rule that he did not want to be photographed because he said he had a problem with his nose. Well, that's the problem. So, the trust-busting credit that Teddy got is bunk. Those of you that don't know what the trust-busting legislation was, it was a cap that was put on corporations at that time, and as you now know that J.P. Morgan, being his brother, or acting as the role of J.P. Morgan, you can understand that that cap would really just affect their competition. So we see how underhanded Teddy Roosevelt really was. Now we can also see where his children got the ideas for what they did, as Kermit's not the only one that played this little game. So Quentin, the youngest of the Roosevelt brothers, he was shot down during World War I at the age of 20. The circumstances surrounding that airplane crash are suspicious, as the photograph clearly shows. So what happened to Quentin? Well, I believe Quentin changed his identity then to Joseph Kennedy. As you can clearly see with these photographs, the ears match and that chin is unmistakable. So I know some of you out there are probably wondering, why would they do this? Well, if we look at what they did after he became Joseph Kennedy, we see that James Roosevelt, the son of FDR, so that would be his cousin, and he went into business together during the Prohibition times and were the exclusive distributors of Gordon's Dry Gin and Dewar's Scotch. So he also invested heavily in Franklin D. Roosevelt's bid for presidency, which he was then rewarded and given the chairman of the SEC position. So you can see how that was definitely beneficial to the whole family. So you can see the importance of them to keep this a secret, because that of course would not be accepted by the general public if they found out that he was a relative and was giving him the seat of the SEC. But of course for the family that works out great, because there is no chance of them being charged with insider trading. He also invested heavily in the Hollywood studios at the same time his brothers were starting the Disney studios. So we can see that there's a definite tie-in to the studios in Hollywood and that we see today. But here's another little interesting fact that I want you to take into consideration. Joseph Kennedy had a daughter named Rosemary. The story is that he allowed her to have a lobotomy that left her the capacity of a moron. Well, this isn't true, because we can see the photograph here was taken at Buckingham Palace where she was presented. Now, the comments that were made during her presentation were to the extent of she's not mentally disabled at all. And we know this because we can see that face, and that face is one of Margaret Thatcher. Pay attention to her hairline and you'll see that it's very unique and it matches perfectly. Now there's another reason why they pulled this scam off, because it allowed them to get around the laws that his father put in place that had to do with the capping of the corporations, because we see that Joseph Kennedy invested heavily with Carnegie in the steel mills. So now you can see where there's a problem here, due to the fact that one of the brothers being Hitler and another brother being a brigadier general, along with a cousin being a brigadier general, and the other cousin being the president at the time, they were able to successfully extend the war as long as they did. And during those years of being at war, wars need steel to make the equipment. So they successfully manipulated us into a sustained war so they could bank and make billions. So now in this photograph we see Edith, that would be the second daughter of Teddy Roosevelt, that we see peeking over Kermit's shoulder right here, that played a role in this as well. She played Ava Braun. Now we see Ava here with her family, so we're told, but actually in this photograph we see Edith Roosevelt's real mother, herself, and her other sister. But wait, it gets even better, because as we see Ava Braun here, we see a good close-up of her face. That face is Lillian Carter. So now you can understand how the Carter JFK scenario comes into play, as we see with the evidence here.
talks about who might be the real Rosalind Carter. They talk about the steel magnolia. And I've got to ask you this question. Where's the magnolia?
Where's the steel? I think that started in the campaign. And once somebody writes that, it just keeps being picked up.
Is it more steel than magnolia or the other way around?
I don't know. I never have felt that I was steely.
What do you think the public perceives?
Queridos amigos, les habla la esposa del senador John F. Kennedy, candidato a la presidencia de los Estados Unidos.
What about other members in the Kennedy clan? Take note of the ears. Now there's enough material from this one family to go on for days, but now hopefully you have a understanding of who they are, and when you read their stories about the past, you'll understand the real relationships behind the scenes. This is done 15 years more recent than the other one. So we had much better camera equipment, much better film, much better technology. So you can see that the edge of this is much sharper. Plus this is a studio shot of this person, and you have a controlled environment with lighting and whatnot. The other one is an outdoor shot. So, but as we go back and forth between the layers, we can clearly see that not only does the ear match, but of course the hair even matches, that this is the same individual. I want you to be very certain with this, because this is very important. This lays the foundation of a lot of things that we're talking about in all these videos, as you'll see the reason why they're doing this and how they were able to pull this off and continue to pull it off. Now here's another set of ears, just so you're sure of who these people are. The only change that you see in that ear is due to the camera distortion, the lens distortion. That is an identical ear. That is an identical ear. This is Walt Disney. Everyone knows who Walt Disney is. I don't have to go into any detail about that. Now, during World War II, Disney was the company that was producing the propaganda films for the United States. They produced several, and I spoke about those in the section 1 of this video series. The propaganda arm of our government, in order to spur the American population into fighting a war, showed videos that they produced about Nazi Germany and how evil Nazi Germany was. When you see Walt Disney, you usually don't think of that aspect of their business or their beginnings, but it was a very large part of what they are. Now, as a child, everyone grows up wanting to go to Disney World or Disneyland and see Mickey Mouse and ride the rides, whatnot. But for the rest of us, that's about as far as we think about Disney. Now, my grandfather fought in World War II. He stormed the beach of Normandy. He was 20 years in the Army and ended up a Chief Master Sergeant. He put his life on the line for the freedoms that we have today, and so did many other Americans and their family members. Many of them lost their lives. Many Germans lost their lives. Many people lost a lot, including their relatives, and their whole worlds were turned upside down, and still are to this day because of the events that happened from World War II. So when you see this person, Walt Disney, and you see the commercials for Disneyland and Disney World on TV, and you're thinking about going out and seeing the new Disney movie, keep this image in your mind. And remember what they are about. They are the ones that created the war in order for them to profit. Companies like IBM, Coca-Cola, all these companies profited immensely, including the Rockefellers. So think about that next time you're going to go spend your hard-earned dollar putting it into this Nazi propaganda machine that continues to this day to produce events that are fake, fictitious, and fill our minds with a bunch of nonsense. These people are still in control. These people are in our government, and these people are causing this world and this government to fall apart in order for them to get their one world government. Their new world order will not win as long as you don't let it win. Vote with your dollar. Do not put it in their pocket.